Okay, based on the mid-semester synchronous session, the class requested to see some exemplary entries on the philosophy docs. So I have a couple students from this semester. I have their docs pulled up, and I'm just going to kind of go through this and show you what a great entry entails. And first off, I'm going to use the first question of the semester, and it was, how do primary and secondary diversity characteristics affect learning? And as I go through here, I want you to notice that these students kind of give an overview of what the text says, showing a deep understanding and comprehension of what you've read in the text. And then they also apply it to like a real life environment. So based on this question, this student goes through and explains the characteristics, what they are. So he explains what primary characteristics are, talks about race, gender, and age group, and then secondary characteristics such as job, education level, and marital status, and talks about them being features that filter the way we perceive and feel about the world around us. So those can be different for the individual based on, where they're at in life and what their secondary characteristics consist of. He goes through and explains them in a little greater detail and how they affect learning individually. And then, he references the text throughout the entry. And, it's not required, but he uses italics here to, designate some important points. And then at the end of the question, he gives a real life example. So he talks about, both types of characteristics, making up who someone is, where they come from, where they are now, and the belief systems they hold in place based on their experience, recognizing the individuality of each learner and where each learner, where the individual characteristics intersect with other learners, allows teachers to craft teaching strategies that meet the needs of learners as efficiently as possible. And then he goes on to talk about some personal examples. And if you see, some of the comments, and we leave comments on everyone each week, and these are not, perfect answers, but they're what we're looking for based on comprehension of the text and some real life examples. So here, I gave this comment, great answer. You clearly understand the difference and effects of each characteristic. I'd like to hear some personal examples in this section. So then that's when he went back and gave a personal example. So, you guys build on this document throughout the semester, and based on our comments, as long as you go back through and add to it, you get a grade at the end of the semester. And that's what we want to see, is that you take our comments, our constructive feedback, and you build on the document. So that's what this student had done. Dr. Baker commented as well, love this, we are never true experts, and how boring would that be if we were? So that's what we're trying to kind of show you throughout the semester is, some people freak out if they don't get 100, or if they, feel like their grade is questionable. No one is perfect, including Dr. Baker and myself. We learn every semester when we're teaching, and so we want you to build on these documents as you learn and as you read further in the text and share your experiences in the group setting, and you can kind of build on that with your philosophy doc. The other student that we chose, I'm going to use the question, what impact does motivation have on learning? And she goes through and explains again what the text says, and she cites the text. This is actually a different document she pulled from, a different reference, and she goes through and explains the impact of motivation. It's first necessary to define and understand motivation. Motivation falls into two categories, intrinsic and extrinsic. And that's what we were really looking for, because that's, based on the text and just a full comprehension of the two types of motivation. She gives examples of intrinsic motivation, including personal satisfaction, desire for personal growth, interest in the content, and personal sense of accomplishment. And then she goes down and gives examples of extrinsic motivation, increase in pay, a new job, a reward, or an avoidance of a punishment. She talks about, the differences of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Learners with high levels of intrinsic motivation have an easier time staying committed to learning when roadblocks occur because they're intrinsically motivated. So she really gives a clear definition of the two types of motivation here. Some of the comments as we go down through, an excellent response. You hit on not only intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, but also on other factors, including self-efficacy and communication. So those were all in the text in the reading for that week. She talks about overall motivation has a large impact on students' learning. The more motivated a student is, the more willing they are to persevere when the learning gets difficult. Again, talking about the two different types of motivation. Up in the bulk of the content, she talks about the self-efficacy or their belief in themselves, that their ability to succeed. Self-efficacy increases. As self-efficacy increases, so does motivation. Therefore, the instructor should focus on strategies that increase student self-efficacy. Down below, she talks about communication should also be encouraged in an online class, done through a discussion board, Google Doc, Google Community, or a wiki. As you've noticed in this, in our class, we try to encourage communication via several different modalities, and we're not looking for a specific word count or size of the document, but just to know that you touch on everything so that you show a full understanding of the text that you read that week, and then also give some sort of example. And it may not be, an example. This is your philosophy of online teaching. So if you haven't taught online, obviously, you don't have as many personal examples, but you've been an online learner and you've read the text. So you might, formulate a philosophy based on your understanding thus far. This can change. It may change, drastically throughout the semester. It may change, as you go into teaching. Some of you who haven't taught before, you're kind of just formulating what you think is going to work based on your understandings. The next question is, what impact does self-directedness have on learning? And I'm not going to go through this as detailed. I just want to kind of show you. She talks about the 4 stages of self-directed learning, because that was in, the reading. She goes through the stages, and some comments from Dr. Baker. A great start, but to make it better, go back and start by referencing Grove's stages of self-directedness. This way, when you read it later, it will jog your memory about what those stages are and how you can respond as an instructor. She replies, okay, thanks for the feedback. And that's where she went through and added those stages in. So that's what we look for. We want to see that you take the feedback and go back and, reference whatever feedback we've given, or add to your document and add, whatever areas we're asking you to work on. So again, we're not expecting it to be perfect. These are just some exemplary examples that, they weren't perfect to begin with, but they've went back and they've touched on our feedback and our recommendations to make them an exemplary example. There are several in the class. There are several to choose from, but we didn't want to give you an hour-long video and go through every one. So these are just some examples to kind of let you see what we're looking for. And sometimes it's easier visually to see something rather than us just telling you how we'd like it to look. So again, if you have questions, feel free to contact Dr. Baker or myself. And, I thank these students for allowing us to use their work to show the class some great examples. And we look forward to seeing your philosophy docs grow throughout the rest of the semester.